Ask again. What are you here for now?
Learn how to make learn how to make a
Slovak
Slovak nut roll.
nut roll.
Nut roll.
But we're gonna make not just nut rolls. We're gonna make lekvar, which is prune butter, and apricot fill-in ones. So the recipe calls for 3 cups of milk that you put on the stove to heat up, and 3/4 of a cup of butter. I am going to cut it in little pats because it will melt quicker. And I don't want the milk to boil, but I do want it to warm up because the yeast is going to go in there too. This recipe makes a dozen rolls. And now this is the ingredient from hell, but it seems to be the secret ingredient. It's Crisco. And you need 6 tablespoons. My recipe, much annotated and spilled upon. The milk is heated, and the butter and Crisco has pretty much melted. So I'm going to turn it off, and I'm going to stir in 1.5 cups of sugar and just under 2 teaspoons of salt. The measurement is 1 3/4. All right, this is 9 eggs, and I'm beating them up a little bit. Just what we do is take a little bit of the warm liquid and put it into the eggs, because we don't want the eggs to cook in case the milk is too hot. This is an optional ingredient. It's 2 tablespoons of sour cream, and I think it just serves to make the dough a little bit richer.
2 dollops of daisy.
2 dollops of daisy. So altogether 12 cups of flour. Here we go. 3 tablespoons of dry yeast. 1, 2, 3. So this is half of the flour. And I'm just gonna stir this in. So I put in half of the flour and all of the yeast.
Why do you put in the flour in 2 different times? So it doesn't get too lumpy? I'm not quite sure why.
One reason is so that you moisten, so that it blends in easier, because if I put in all 12 cups of flour in there, I'd have to stir it really, really hard, and I wouldn't get it mixed as well. Okay, now it's a very, very, very soft dough at this point, but I can assure you that there is a lot more flour on the bottom of this, which I'm going to knead in. So I'm putting a little more on top because it's a very wet dough. So it's gonna eat up more flour.
But you don't.
I'm gonna spray 2 bowls with a little bit of non-stick spray. Go in there, and then I'm gonna cover it, and it's gonna sit here for at least 2 hours. No, what'll happen is the red thing will rise up, and we'll be able to see the dough in between there.
Well, I think I'm gonna probably take the top bowl
Okay,
off.
take it off. You think it's bigger now?
Well, you can see it under here.
You
Okay.
can see it under here. It's
All right,
hard to
let's
see.
take it off.
See?
Okay.
And it's hard to take it
Let's see
out.
if we can get it. Okay. I
Well,
would say that's more than doubled in size.
So
holy smokes! And what is this important part you're going to do right now?
we're gonna punch it.
Or just punch
Punch
it
it.
down. Just punch it right down and deflate it.
So
The yeast makes it rise.
That's right. And this is, we're going to let it rise 2 times.
After
so-
we punch it a little,
And then we're going to let it rise again. Divide it into 12 pieces. Jelly roll. You roll it up like that, and then you put it on a parchment lined baking sheet, and you let it rise just again a little bit. And
What's
then
the fruit sauce?
it's the fruit. The fruit is the one is called lekvar, and that's made of prunes that have been soaked in orange juice overnight, and then cooked on the stove with more water until it gets just like jelly. Okay, and then the other one will be apricots, and they're cooked the same way. They're soaked in orange juice and then cooked a little bit. The lekvar, I might add some cinnamon to. Okay, this is the dough that is, we took it out of the refrigerator. I really didn't expect it to rise quite that much, but it did. So this is like the third time it's risen. And I am going to pat it down, and I'm going to roll it out into a fairly thin rectangle.
Where'd you get that rolling pin? It's not an old Slovak rolling
I
pin?
don't think so.
Okay, I take it back. Looks like it.
It isn't.
Pretty
It's
crude.
an old Italian rolling pin. Slovak rolling pins they have two handles and a big fat part in the middle.
Okay.
I have one of those too, but I prefer this. So I'm rolling this fairly thin.
How thin would you say?
Oh, probably a quarter of an inch. It's pretty elastic dough, so you have to kind of keep playing at it. Alright, this I'm going to fill with apricots. And the apricots have been, it's dried apricots that I soaked in orange juice overnight to plump them up. And then in the morning, I cooked them until they were literally mush.
So let's talk about the nomenclature of these things. What do you call these things that you roll up?
Kolach.
And where did you learn to call them kolach?
From my mother and grandmother and my aunts.
And your
and
grandma?
all the Slovak women that I went to church with when I was a young kid.
And both immigrant people and people who were from here.
Mostly they were immigrants.
And Pam, who you got the recipe from,
Yes.
she also calls them kolach, right?
She calls them nut rolls. There's another Slovak pastry called rožky. And some people think that kolach and rožky are interchangeable, but kolach dough is a yeast dough. It's a raised dough. And rožky is made usually not, it's like a cream cheese dough or more like a pastry dough.
You're going to put an egg wash on it.
I am.
What is an egg wash?
It's a whole egg mixed with just like a teaspoon of water just to soften the egg, and I just whip it with a fork.
And why are you doing this?
Well, it glazes the outside of the rolls, makes them very shiny and brown when they bake, and not pretty. This makes it pretty. Okay, you need to find something. Okay, sorry. So here I am.
Use a paintbrush?
Well, it's a pastry brush. It looks very much like a paintbrush, yes.
Okay. And meanwhile, you're heating the oven to what?
350, and they're going to go in the oven for 35 minutes at 350. And these are apricot ones.
Now that is the lekvar one, and I cut it when it was still warm, and I don't know, it was spectacular.